All right, welcome to another episode of ICU Doc Talk. Today, I want to talk about America. I know it's weird. I don't want to talk about medicine. I'm going to talk about w- what like this country, maybe a little bit of its history, what has gone on, and what is going on right now. From my perspective, I don't know if I have any unique perspective or insight. But why don't we all just sit down and talk about what's going on and try to get some insight. And I swear to you, I'm not trying to become a political demagogue. This is not a podcast that's trying to radicalize you into a political point of view. I promise. I promise I'm not changing the platform of this. But yeah, there's some things I want to get out. So let's talk about this strange phenomenon that is America. Join me. All right, there's a couple things that I just from growing up that kind of stick in my mind when I think about the United States. One of them specifically, I don't know why, I swear, it just runs through my mind. You know, you just have these memories from when you're younger and you just can't get rid of them for whatever reason. And here's one of them. I was a Boy Scout. I was probably like 12 or something, I don't know. And I hated Boy Scouts. Absolutely hated it. I still hate Boy Scouts. I think it's a terrible program. But I'll leave that for another time. I hated it as a child. I hate it now. I hate it for many reasons. But anyway, it taught good things, all that stuff, whatever. I had a lot of good skills, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of critiques you can make the Boy Scout program. Anyway, I was a young Boy Scout. And I remember a scout leader sat us down, and he I don't know what he was talking about, but I remember him very specifically talking about the United States and America and how the reason it was so good, and this is what I remember so crisply in my mind, the sentence he said. This is what he said. I remember it perfectly. I remember the emotion he had when he said it, and just his face when he said it. I swear it was like by a campfire, who knows. But he said, America is the only country that has gone to war over principle. I remember that very clearly. And I remember at the time, well, I guess I don't remember at the time. I don't really remember how that made me feel. I think just confusion, probably, and principle. I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Principle. America goes to war over principle. All right, cool. America's a good place. Now, I don't think that scout leader was wrong. America does go to war over principle, but I don't think it's the principles that he intended that he was talking about. I think America goes over war over different principles than I think likely what he meant. And I think I'll get into that a little bit more. Another thing that sticks in my mind all the time is when President George H.W. Bush, after the September 11th, when that happened, I remember him, that line, they hate us because of our freedom. That has stuck in my mind a lot. Like, why would they hate us because of our freedom? Why do they hate us, right? That was that was our reaction at the time. Why do these people hate us so much? Now, I swear I'm not leading you down an anti-American thing here. I don't really have a stance here. I'm not I like the United States. There's a lot to love about it. But I'm not trying to lead you. I'm not trying to guide you down some anti-American thing here. Okay, that's not my attempt. I might lead you there. My where you go as you listen to me, but that's not my intent here. Anyway, why do they hate our freedom? And then another thing that sticks in my mind a lot is when I started medical school. So I grew up in a very conservative, very conservative community in a conservative family. Conservative parents, great parents. Love my parents. My dad has passed away, but I grew up with Fox News. When I was a teenager, when it started to become a thing, that was the news on in the house. So it was very conservative, right? Fox News is conservative propaganda. It is, very clearly, and it's become much more so now. But I grew up with that, and then I grew up Rush Limbaugh on the radio and Glenn Beck. I remember listening. I remember I listened to Glenn Beck in college. Like, I put Glenn Beck on the radio. I listened to Rush Limbaugh in college. So I've grown up conservative, for sure. Like, I know all about conservative mentality and conservative culture and all that stuff. What's my point? Although I think I was probably socially liberal in college and things like that, and obviously become more liberal as I age. I'm more of a leftist, obviously. Although, as you know, I don't like to subscribe to ideology. Anyway, when I moved away from my, I don't want to do this, but when I moved away from my hometown to another town, and I remember my roommate, who's a good guy. We were talking about Obama, and I remember, I'm like, I liked when Obama got elected. I thought it was cool. But I remember being like, I said something like this. I said, Obama's fine. I just don't want socialism. That's what I said. I said that. I just don't want socialism. I like Obama. I just don't want socialism. So just these three things. America goes to war over, it's the only country that goes to war over principle. And then George H.W. Bush saying, they hate us because of our freedom. And then me saying, I just don't want socialism. These things stick in my mind a lot. I don't know why. And I kind of want to talk about what these things mean. And also, before I talk more about this, I want to make very clear, when you critiquing, because I'm obviously going to be critiquing the United States here, right? I'm critical. I have a lot of critical things to say about the United States. And I say this all the time. It often doesn't get across. Criticizing something is not an endorsement of its complete polar opposite, right? So when you criticize the United States, when you criticize the capitalistic system, which I often do, it does not make you a communist. I am not a communist. I do not like communism. I'm not a socialist. So it's just being aware of what's going on, critiquing things. So I'm not, by, speaking critically about my country, it doesn't mean I want what is supposed to be, what is allegedly the opposite thing, right? I don't want to go to Soviet Russia and live there in the 1950s. I don't want to live under Mao. Like, that's people's knee-jerk response. When you criticize something, you're not endorsing its opposite. Anyway, in fact, when you criticize something thoughtfully, it's actually a sign that you care, right? I mean, I care about the United States. I care about the people here. It's not like... Anyway, so let's go back to that one. Okay, so America is the only country that goes to war over principle. So America, the United States has been at war for about 90% of its existence. That's a fact. So it is I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it is a warmongering country. It creates war. It stirs up war. It starts war. It does that, and it does do it over a principle, right? And now, another little, I guess, waiver. I'm not a historian. Okay, I'm not a history major. I don't have background in history at all. So, if things I'm saying, if you think they're wrong, let me know. But the United States, America seems to get involved in wars for power and for control. That is its principle. It wants power, and it seeks to maintain that power. As a global power, it definitely seeks to maintain that power. Anti-communism panic has been one of the mainstays of American ideology since the rise of the Soviet state, right? There's this like myth, that I think I was led to believe in high school and younger that we saved Europe during World War II, right? The United States got involved and saved the day and all that stuff. And that's part of just the myth of America. It's just not quite true. I mean, what really happened is Russia and Stalin and Churchill and the British Empire were at war with Germany, and we sold these countries a bunch of stuff for war, and we got all their gold. And what happened after World War? And then we got involved in World War II, and we helped clean things up. Now, I don't want to invalidate or underestimate the veterans that were involved, the American veterans that were involved in the World War II, and our part in that. I know I'm kind of minimizing it here, but I'm just pushing it back against the myth that America saved the day. What happened is we basically became the repository of all the world's gold, and the world ran on the gold standard then. So what happened after World War II? How did America become a powerhouse? Well, we had the world's gold supply, and we everything culminated at the Bretton Woods Conference, where we said that the dollar would be the reserve currency for the world, and we basically set the world economic agenda. And that, from then, that is where dominance, American economic dominance and military dominance really took off, was the Bretton Woods Conference. And then during the Bretton Woods Conference, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were created, which are controlled by the United States. And these are basically world banks that are the purse for the world, right? So this is one of the main ways that the United States got its foothold over the world at that time. And since then, America is the only country that has gone to war over principle. What is the principle with which we war, right? And it's to maintain our power over the world. Now, American wars have been egregious things. It is my opinion that this country, America, has committed grave war crimes. Grave war crimes. What immediately comes to mind is Vietnam and the Iraq War. These are war crimes. They were unjustified wars, and they were fueled. Vietnam, particularly, was fueled by anti-communism panic. There are aside from those, what genocide happened. We killed innocent women and children during Vietnam. Many. We bombed Cambodia. It's just, the history is horrific. It's horrific what we've done. This isn't even to mention all of the CIA-backed coups of so many countries. I mean, Chile with Pinochet in Indonesia, with Suharto in Congo and Panama, Costa Rica, on and on and on. Iran, the amount of countries that have been overthrown by the United States either with coups that were backed by the CIA or direct military involvement is staggering, absolutely staggering. And the United States has toppled democratically elected leaders many times. The United States does not spread democracy. That is a fact. It doesn't matter what myths we've been taught in school. It doesn't matter what George W. Bush said. Oh, we went to Iraq to spread democracy and freedom. These are lies. They are lies. The United States demonstrably does not spread democracy. It spreads American hegemonic control. That's what it spreads. And it's done it over and over and over again with many examples to stay as the world power. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. America itself is not a democracy. Now, this is something that right-wing conservatives love to say, right? And it's actually kind of a fascist talking point at this point. We are not a democracy. And it's true, we're not. And we're never designed to be a democracy. Although it seems like the Founding Fathers used the word republic and democracy fairly interchangeably. But the facts are the United States is a constitutional republic. It is not a democracy. It's not a direct democracy or anything like that. So a lot of this neo-fascist rhetoric that's going around is like, oh, we're not a democracy, and in attempts to weaken democratic voices and democratic elections. So, and that's what effective propaganda does. It takes kernels of truth, which are true, and then bends them and twists them and contorts them in all these different ways to that it can be very, very convincing, right? So America itself is a miserable excuse for democracy now. However, it is clearly also a representative democracy. It is a functional representative democracy. That is a fact. We democratically, by popular vote, often sometimes electoral vote, depending if it's state, national, or local politics, we elect people and they represent us, right? Now, how effective do they represent us? Well, they don't, right? Because that's we on paper, we're supposed to elect people to then participate in parliamentary politics that then have our best interests at heart. But that doesn't happen anymore because parliamentary politics is now destroyed in the United States. It does not work. So we're supposed to be, we're a constitutional republic, right? And then we're a representative democracy. We're also sometimes a direct democracy. Some people forget that we have ballot initiatives. That's a direct vote of the population. It's a direct democracy. So we're like a spectrum of these things. But what are we effectively? We're not a representative democracy. We're not a constitutional republic. We're an aristocracy. We have the people that we elect do not represent us. They represent us. They represent moneyed interests. So there's many ways that I think actually there's many words to use to describe the current United States. What is it? In my opinion, what is it? Well, I've already said one of them. It's an aristocracy. It's a plutocracy. It's a crony capitalistic setup, whatever it is. Or we're a corporatocracy. That is functionally what we have become. And it has degenerated in this way over the last 40 to 50 years through very specific efforts called neoliberalism to create this landscape in which we now exist. And I want to back it up just a little bit. So I will talk about more neoliberalism, but I want to go back to the Bretton Woods Conference where all the world powers got together and arranged a new economic system. There has been great global prosperity since then. It's not just the United States, but globally as well. That is true. So a lot of leftists like to deny that or like to minimize that. So mass industrialization and living standards and poverty, all of these things have improved very, very likely, I mean, almost definitely because of American-led world order and because America became the police of deep water navigation and help peaceful trade, and it helped usher in globalization, and it industrialized the world. That was a direct consequence of the Bretton Woods Conference arrangement that happened. And so that's a fact in my mind. Now, is it good that happened? Sure. Is it bad that everybody ceded control to a world power to do that? Yes, that's also bad. The answer is it's messy and it's complicated. There's no player here that's 100% virtuous, right? There's no player here that's 100% evil. It's incredibly messy because humanity is messy and nations are messy. All right, and so anyway, backing it up into addressing what neoliberalism is. And so I mentioned earlier that over the last 40, 50 years, things have gotten worse in terms of the power of people, and we have strayed from what our ideologies are. Like, oh, we're supposed to be this constitutional republic, and we're supposed to be this representative democracy. And it's been completely subverted. And it all happened because of pro-business interventions in the 1970s and 1980s. And I mean pro-business, not pro-market. They're very different things. Pro-market is good. So another thing is when I'm critical, people have been critical of a capitalistic system, which I don't even like to use the word capitalism or communism, things like that, because people have such erroneous ideas of what these things even are. I don't hate capitalism. It's very, very popular, pop culture right now to hate capitalism. But I feel like you're just running away with a narrative that's not real, even just by saying that. Oh, capitalism says this, capitalism says that. Capitalism doesn't exist. Neither does communism, neither does socialism. These are these are economic theories and intertwined with social theories. They're theories, and they don't exist. Pure capitalism has never existed. Pure communism has never. These things have never been practiced, ever. And so, what is my point? When I make critiques of basically when I say capitalism, I'm just talking about the American economic world order. That is what people mean often when they say capitalism. But I don't hate a market economy, right? Again, to be critical of these things doesn't mean you hate a market economy. It doesn't mean you hate the things that are associated with that. Anyway, so things became much more pro-business, meaning they favored business. They not favored markets. Markets are healthy. Favoring markets, having regulation that favors markets and competition, that's healthy. That is a good way to do things. But what happened is with neoliberalism, you deregulated businesses, specific businesses. And with the rise of junk bond and stock buybacks and the Reagan Revolution, which was already happening before Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter was starting to implement these things, and the assault on the firing all of the traffic controller and people in the I can't really think right now in the airports. Sorry, I can't think like what Reagan did. And anyway, all of these things culminated in the 1970s and 1980s, and with the supply side economics and neoliberalistic ideas. Neoliberalism is this naive trust in laissez-faire economics and the free market. A free market that doesn't exist because markets are always controlled. So that's the lie. People say I trust the free market. You're already believing a lie. Markets are not free. They're always controlled by someone. That is ridiculous. markets must exist with the state. They exist in tandem. They're one or another. Corporations and the government, these distinctions are artificial. They're not real. They're not real, these distinctions. The state props up the markets and corporations, and the corporations influence the state. That is how it's always been, and it's been way worse the last 40, 50 years. And supply side economics and trickle down economics has been an absolute lie. These things do not work. All boats rise with the tide is a total lie. It's a total lie. All we've seen for the last 40, 50 years are wealth concentration, and then a deeply penetrating influence into our politics and our election process. And and then everything was dragged this way. And this is kind of what corporate fascism is, right? Fascism is not a word that I like to use often either, because it gets so confused. But this is what corporate fascism is, when corporatism influences the government, and you prioritize businesses and consumerism above that, and you deregulate business. This corporate fascism. This is exactly what it is, precisely what it is, and it's resulted in terrible wage stagnation for Americans. It has not delivered on its premise. That is a fact. Trickle-down economics, supply-side economics, has not delivered on what it promised. It has been a lie, and it's been corporate propaganda. And this is the result, right? We have people living paycheck to paycheck. We have people in healthcare crises that go bankrupt, and you have people that doing a GoFundMe to fund them going to the primary care physician. That is what is going on. One of the worst, and it's dragged everything to the right. Right. So everybody on the, people, liberals and the left likes to blame Ronald Reagan, and I'm not a fan of Ronald Reagan, but every American president after him has done the same thing. Every single one, including Obama, including Trump, including Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a phenomenal Republican. Republicans should love him, but they don't, right? Because they're blinded by ideology and politics, right? They should love Bill Clinton. He got rid of Glass-Steagall. The Glass-Steagall Act stopped banks from taking your deposit money and using them in speculative markets, and he got rid of it. That probably was a huge contributor to the 2008 financial crisis, was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton wanted to privatize Social Security with Newt Gingrich. His tough on crime stances, the 101 crack laws, all that stuff was under Bill Clinton. He was a phenomenal Republican. Republicans should adore him, but of course they don't, because of their news sources they don't know these things. George H.W. Bush was a warmonger, committed war crimes, and just lied to everybody. Obama propped up this corporate fascist state, right? He had a chance to remake this, and he just propped it up. I do not have many good things to say about Barack Obama. He tried with Obamacare, which was basically a gift to insurance companies. Barack Obama did very similar things that Ronald Reagan did, and then Donald Trump, we don't need to talk about. His tax plan is a relief plan for the ultra rich. He's whatever. We don't need to and talk about that later. My point is, everything got dragged way to the right into this corporate fascist climate, which is where we find ourselves now. That is the current situation where we're at. And then you have landmark Supreme Court cases, notably Citizens United in I think 2010 and Shelby versus Holder in 2013, and these have dismantled whatever little excuse we had for an actual fair election process that wasn't clouded and influenced by money. And it basically Citizens United gave corporations the legal right basically to influence political campaigns, and Shelby versus Holder got rid of federal preclearance, gutting part of the Voting Rights Act of like 1965. Basically, states can change their voting laws without the federal government having looking at them to see if they have discriminatory impact, and they can just do that. And that has disenfranchised the electorate, us people. It's disenfranchised us functionally, maybe not in law. And that's how these things happen, right? They don't happen written out in law, but the people that do these things, they understand the impact, and that's how these things happen. It's looking at the impact. It's not looking at the actual laws, how they're written and things like that, whatever. It's looking at what is the impact, and the impact is now we are, we're basically a corporate plutocratic state, and our elected officials do not, nationally at least, they do not represent the people at all. None of them. I mean, basically none of them. I'm very pessimistic about national politics and politicians and their political will and power to do anything for actual people. And then with this functional disenfranchisement and then wage stagnation, you get that's why we find ourselves where we are right now. With that, wage stagnation and people being coerced into working, right? Because we live in the United States is coercive. Our culture, it's not free. It's coercive. Oh, you can go get a job somewhere else. No, you can't. There's so many non-competes, right? And just even getting a job at McDonald's, you sign a contract, a non-compete. There's so many forced in-house arbitration with an employer. The employee contracts and having regional monopolies have destroyed the labor force. There's not freedom. Oh, you can go. You basically work for a bank when you take out a loan for something, whether that's owning a business or you work for a corporation, and you were coerced into doing this. If you don't work, you don't live. You can't just go and live off the land somewhere because you can't. You have to own land to do that, and you can't just own land. So the system we have is coercive. It is. It just is. You must work. You must do these. You must and you must work for someone that's using your labor in some sort of way. And I know I'm kind of highlighting little Marxist little highlights here, but this is different from toiling and work. Everybody, you must work to live. I'm not saying you can't. Everybody has to work to live in this life, but you cannot work for yourself in this where we're at. There's no working for yourself. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm self-employed. Yeah, well, you either took out a loan from a bank and you work for a bank, or you work for someone else, or you were lucky enough to inherit money and you didn't earn that. So, which is fine. I'm not like, it's fine. Good for you. If you inherited money and you're able to do that, it's good. Good for you. And I don't mean that sarcastically, but my point is, you don't own your labor like in this system. It's not you're laboring for someone else and then you're getting paid from that, basically. To really boil it down. And it's a coercive system. And if you don't do those things, you don't accumulate wealth. You may starve. Like you may not. You don't make any money to even function, and to navigate this world. So anyway, to back it up, my whole point is, you have wage stagnation, and you don't have this economic system that's put in place that working for the vast majority of Americans. So what do you get? You get discontent. You get a populace that's discontent, and that is primed and just ripe for a demagogue to come along and just, throw the whole thing off and to manipulate people. And that is what you have with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a demagogue. He's a populist, and all the things that we know that fall from that, which shattered, prior American politics. So, and then backing up a little bit more. So you have these things going on domestically. You have discontent happening there, and then what is the other pillars of what is America? We only go for war for principle. Well, the military-industrial complex is what bolsters this whole thing. It's what gives us the might of our dollar. I used to make a lot of TikTok videos, and I still do, about the U.S. dollar and the strength of it. And how the national debt doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter. That is just fodder for talking heads. Or about how the United States has an enormous trade deficit with China and the rest of the world. The trade deficit is desirable. That means we're a sink for all the surplus of China and Germany, all these other countries, that they don't know what to do with their capital. They have too much. And having a surplus like that is not necessarily a good thing. And our trade deficit and our national deficit, our federal deficit are not bad things. And only we can get away with this. Only the United States can get away with this. Why? Because of the might of the dollar, which is inextricably linked with the might of the U.S. military-industrial complex and its hegemonic control over the world. These things are all related. It does not matter how much Congress goes into debt. The Fed, the Treasury, and U.S. banks just make money. They print money. The only break on it is hyperinflation. It's the only break that is on this process. So we basically have a, taking the pessimistic standpoint, we basically have a coercive job market that skeletonizes staff, that underpays as much as possible, that tries to give as little benefits as possible, that does not care about child care, right, to maximize shareholder payout, because that's all that matters to companies. It's all that a CEO cares about. Labor is a liability to the people that run the show. They do not care about workers. So you have this kind of labor market going on, which is the norm, right, that does not care about families, does not care about children, right, does not care about pregnant mothers, does not care about maternity or paternity leave. None of these things matter. Well, what is the value? Okay, so what is the principle for which the United States goes to war? Short-term profits, because the multinational corporations run this country, right? It's a multinational corporate interests that facilitate and are the catalyst for the United States to go to war. And I'm not making this up, right? It happens over and over again. Do you have any idea? I mean, just take the Iraq War. All of the subcontractors, private subcontractors that were in collusion with the people that run, like Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, that were involved in those war decisions, that made money, that profited off of that. This is the concept of the shock doctrine that Naomi Klein popularized. It's happened all the time. It happened in Costa Rica with a banana company, like a fruit company, in the 70s and 80s. It just happens. That is the principle by which the United States goes to war, is to protect multinational American interests and to ensure broad American hegemonic economic control. That is the principle by which the United States goes to war. Sorry, I just fact-checked myself. It wasn't Costa Rica, it was Guatemala and the United Fruit Company. Go ahead and Google Guatemala and the United Fruit Company if you want to learn a little bit more about that and be very disappointed with the U.S. government. Oh, and then, not to mention, just our tax system is designed to tax labor and not to tax capital. I don't even have time to go into our tax system and how deranged it is, and it is literally designed for people like you and me who make money off of our labor, not off our capital growing, and we pay more taxes. Don't even get me started about that. Just makes me so angry. So, and then if you go to George W. Bush's quote, "Why do they hate us?" Well, and America is also very beloved in the world as well for many reasons. I know I'm taking a very narrow view right now, and I do realize that, and you should realize that too as I'm talking. But one of the reasons why America can be so unpopular with the rest of the world is our foreign wars and entanglements with the rest of the world. We do not help. Our direct foreign interventions rarely help people. They rarely help other. I mean, they do. You can come up with many examples that they do, but I can come up with more examples that they don't. And not only do they not help, but they destabilize countries, and they cause starvation and death and genocide and murder, but directly by U.S. troops and indirectly as well. It's happened over and over and over again. These are facts. It's just the facts. All right, and so then there's many avenues I can take and be talking here, but let's go back to me when I was in med school, and I was like, oh, I just don't like socialism. So why would I think that Barack Obama was a socialist? Well, obviously I was influenced to think that way by conservative media, because Barack Obama was not a socialist. Nothing about him was socialistic. Nothing about America is like socialism, or any of our American presidents or any of our American politics, right? The closest thing is currently is Bernie Sanders, but he's not even really a socialist, and his programs, what things that he wants are not. This is not socialism. It's social democratic policy, which is an enormous difference. Socialism is the end of the road from communism. Again, this is all theory. This is confounding actually what's going on with theory. And socialism and communism are like a withering of the state through empowering labor, all that stuff. So anyway, I know you know this stuff, but talking about, okay, well, I just don't want socialism. So the United States has never been socialistic. Nobody's ever really had pure socialism, right? But we've had plenty of social democratic policies instituted, particularly during FDR era and the New Deal era. And the wealthiest generation that maybe has ever existed has benefited from direct social democratic programs that were implemented during the New Deal era and thereafter, that was federal law. I mean, you take that were also totally tinged with racism, right? I mean, you take, going way back, the Homestead Act, which just gave free land to white settlers, just gave it for free. And you take things like the GI Bill, and you combine that with stuff like redlining, and you combine it with all the other racist policies of New Deal era policies, which are very numerous, and then you combine that with the war on drugs and mass incarceration that started to happen during the 1980s and 90s, and then you combine that with subprime loans targeted at black people, and you combine this on and on and on and on, you have you have disparities along racial lines, you have wealth disparities along generational lines. And it's because of direct federal government involvement that helped the boomer generation get a leg up to begin with. And it gets all conflated with these ideologies of rugged individualism, et cetera, that makes up this fairy tale of meritocracy and laissez-faire economics, and it's all just, it's not true. It's not true. It's the systems matter. The systems that are put in place matter, and systems impact people and populations, and economic policies impact people and populations. And it is this changing of policy to being pro-business and ceding control to multinational corporations and putting our value with short-term profits of shareholders rather than putting our value in the public and the people that has caused the turmoil that you're seeing right now. This is the backlash, this is the consequences of it. That's and that's a lot of this reason is, it's why we're here, it's where we're at. Now, maybe let me change gears a little bit. What are the good things that I think about America? So there's lots of good things, right? Although sometimes it's hard to think about them, what they are. But Americans do enjoy more economic prosperity than a lot of other nations with higher living standards and low unemployment rates usually. So there's a lot of good, and the quality of healthcare is very good. The access to healthcare is very poor. It's embarrassingly poor. It's ridiculously poor. So there are those good things, technological innovation and education. Ivy League education system is very good. The public school education system is not very good. So it's like for every good thing you find 10 bad things. But I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not a cynic. All right, I'm not a cynic. So it sounds like I'm being cynical, but I'm specifically not a cynic. I'm very much an optimist. And then let's just back it all up. Right, so people, talking about the Constitution. So the Constitution was a profoundly amazing document when it was written. It was revolutionary when it was written, and it's an amazing historical document, and it's amazing founding. It's incredible that it was founded at the time. Yeah, the people that founded the country. I'm no constitutional scholar. I'm not knowledgeable about the history of that time, American history. I'm really not, but. It was an amazing document that was written for its time, and relatively enlightened for its time. Relatively. And it was a protest document of monarchical rule. Now, it was still a document that was clearly written to favor a small amount of people, to favor an aristocracy, like very much so. And then it was a document that treats black people as possessions. So that is not a good, that's bad. And, on the conservative right, religious right, there's this like, divine authority that people imbue the Constitution with, and I reject that, right? And I'm a person of faith, and I believe in God, and I'm Christian, and I just think that's ridiculous. I don't believe in a God that inspires a document that treats black people as possessions of white people. That's no, 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 no. Okay, I believe in a God that values all life, regardless of the ridiculous borders that human beings draw. Okay, like it's sad that that needs to be said, but all of this gets rolled into the lore of Christian nationalism, American Christian nationalism, which is an extremely dangerous force in this country right now. In my opinion, it's a very, very dangerous force. White Christian nationalism, or just Christian nationalism. Take the white out of it. Christian nationalism is very dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's anti-science. It's extremely hateful, and it's anti-Christian. It's not. Anyway, I don't know. I won't go too far down that. Anyway, but to me, what do we really enjoy? What are the freedoms? What are the actual right now? Okay, let's go now to our moment. What are the freedoms that we actually enjoy in this country? So I don't think it's economic freedoms. I don't think we have a lot of economic freedom because cost of living and consumerism. Our labor we're not only are exploited at our jobs, meaning we're not paid what we're worth enough. And when I say we, I mean just the working people of the United States. We have terrible benefits, and we're tied to our jobs, and our healthcare is tied to our jobs, all that stuff. But then the other side of the coin is that we are forced to be consumers. Like, we are driven to be consumers by everything, right? It's in our TV and movies and entertainment. We're driven to consume and be entertained, and to use our money to fuel the economy, right? So to say that we enjoy economic freedom, that's why we're free, is a very dubious assertion. But I do think the freedoms that we enjoy are enumerated in the Bill of Rights, right? The first amendments of the Constitution are incredible freedoms. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing, and they're the last things that we have left in this country to protect us from more malevolent forms of government, right? The freedom of press and the freedom of speech and the freedom of protest. These are incredible freedoms to enjoy that not all of the modern world enjoys. And most of human history has not enjoyed these rights, and they're incredible. And I'm very grateful for them. They're absolutely amazing. The rights to do these things, and the freedom to do these things, and the freedom of religion are precious. They're absolutely amazing, and not to be taken for granted. But I do think that the freedoms that Americans believe they enjoy, like economic freedom and freedom to like work where you want and consume, I think they're illusions. I think people think consumerism is freedom, and I think people think a lot of the freedoms that we think we have, I think, are illusions. And then more, increasingly we're boxed in by very, very powerful forces that I think limit our freedom, and they limit our creativity, and they limit, because the more that we are just seen as human labor, that squashes our creativity and what we need to thrive as human beings, which is engaging in creativity and engaging in our families and engaging in our communities in meaningful ways that aren't just that don't have to do with your work, and don't have to do with increasing a stockholder's dividend, right? And we're in a situation where on one side of us we have the corporatocracy, and then on the other side we have a government political system that does not work for people. It serves the interests of corporate interests, very clearly, very demonstrably so. And then, and keeping the majority of the Americans, maybe not all are impoverished, but many are in a precarious situation, right? Precarious. They're part of the precariat class, living paycheck to paycheck, right on that razor thin edge. And that describes a lot of Americans, many, many, many Americans. So what are we to do? what should that's the reality of the that's their political socioeconomic reality at the moment in the United States, and this mirrors a lot of Western countries as well. And then you have very powerful forces that want to that seek to divide the labor class along many different lines, along racial lines or gender lines or whatever, and keep people divided, so that people keep people divided, keep people pacified by consumerism and entertainment, so that this continues, because this is extremely profitable. This is a rent-seeking system that we have that is extremely profitable and concentrates wealth. The system that we are currently have. So it's propaganda, all that stuff. It's all designed to shatter solidarity with the labor class. If there was solidarity with the labor class, this would be over overnight, right? And by over, I don't mean revolutions. It's right. A lot of talk about revolution. I don't think revolution is the thing to do. Revolutions often end very poorly, and that's extremely unpredictable. Talking about this whole argument, capitalism and communism and socialism is such a distraction, because these ideologies, these economic philosophies don't really exist. They serve as political rhetoric, and they serve to whip people up into a frenzy. And you see it on the left as well, right? I'm highly critical of the right, but on the left as well. Capitalism doesn't work. We're at end stage capitalism. Like, that rhetoric is extremely divisive and does not lead in a good direction. Revolution is generally not good, historically speaking. Not that I know a ton about it. I'm not super historic. Like I said, I'm not a historian. I don't have a strong background in history, but many revolutions don't end well. They end with you just have a rebranding of authoritarian rule, and you have people suffering, and then you have a bunch of genocide or murder that happened, or war that happened because of that revolution, right? The French Revolution, Russian Revolution, lots of revolutions that have gone down this way. So when I'm talking about this, like, what are we to do? I don't think revolution. I don't even know what that would look like in this modern landscape. I don't even know what that would look like. I have no clue. Revolutions just don't do well. They don't do well. And they rebrand authoritarian rule, and they often result in single-party rule. And if you know anything about me, I don't care about ideology. What I care about is single-party rule. Single-party rule is what destroys nations and cultures, right? That's what happened in Nazi Germany. It's what's happened in China. It's what happened in Soviet Russia. It wasn't their ideology. It wasn't their whatever nonsense ideology people were subscribing to, whether that's capitalism or communism. It's single-party rule is what destroys people. That's where you get genocide. That's where you get mass murder. That's where you get unjustified wars, is by single-party rule. So anyway, what are we to do? I don't know what are we to do, but I know that, what is the answer? There's so many answers. There's so many solutions, and it's social democratic policy. I care about what would affect change right now to the maximum number of people right now, and that's social democratic policy. That's instituting universal health care. That's giving all children preschool, that right, social programs funded by the state is the solution. Why? We know it works. We know it works. So you have a conservative thinker like Friedrich Hayek in the 1930s, who wrote the book, The Road to Serfdom, which highly influenced conservative thought. And the thought was, if you have any social programs, blah, 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 they lead to totalitarian state. And many modern-day American conservatives believe this. And it's a lie. It's not true. Now, Friedrich Hayek, I'm very sympathetic towards him. He wrote that during the rise of Nazi Germany and totalitarianism, right? But we know, it's a fact, it is a historical fact, that social programs, social democratic policy, does not lead to communism, it does not lead to socialism, it does not lead to totalitarianism, it does not lead to authoritarianism, it does not lead to single-party rule. It doesn't. Why? Because we've done it in the United States a ton. We did it a ton during the FDR era, and it led to public prosperity. Social democratic policy leads to public prosperity. In the United States, public debt, going into public debt to fund things, leads to private wealth, broadly, and not as concentrated. That's a fact. We know it's happened. I'm not making this up. It has happened. We can do it again. So the time is ripe for social democratic policy, for using state funds to fund social programs. A jobs guarantee program by the federal government. Hey, if you want a job, the government will give you a job. Here it is. For anybody that wants it. Universal basic income. Yeah, it sounds crazy. Sure, let's do it. if we can fund wars, we can fund a universal basic income. I know that. And it would uplift people from poverty across racial lines instantly in just a few years. It would happen. All of these things would happen. I know it without a doubt because we have great, vast historical evidence. I do not care about your ideology. Oh, that will lead to communism. No, it won't. Social democratic policy, universal health care, all of these things will help everybody right here and right now. I don't care what your ideology predicts about the future. It's wrong. It won't happen. Your ideology, it's nonsense. We need just tons of robust social programs. We need to help families. Federally implemented paternal leave, paternity leave, maternity leave, an employer has to give. That will help families. There you go, easy. Give poor kids school lunch for free. Federally funded, easy. Completely change the tax plan to tax capital and not income. Completely change the federal income tax to like a 20% flat rate, 15% flat rate, and then aggressively tax capital. Raise corporate taxes, institute a wealth tax, raise inheritance taxes, estate taxes, raise capital gains taxes, greatly raise taxes on stock buybacks. It's just so obvious. The solutions are so obvious what to do. Actually use the antitrust laws that are on the books to break up enormous corporations like Amazon and Facebook, all of these enormous tech giants, all of the agriculture industry, the aviation industry, they all are running monopolies. Every single one of them, either huge monopolies or regional monopolies or monopsonies. They're doing it. Break them up. Easy. There's so I can't stress enough. There are so many solutions to our problems, and they have to do with breaking up huge business monopolies or oligopolies, and instituting social democratic policies. And the federal deficit does not matter as long as you steer away from hyperinflation. The federal deficit does not matter. I can't believe how much that needs to be hammered into people's heads. It doesn't matter. The federal government does not need to be run like a household budget. That's not how this works. It's not how it works. Anyway, there's so many solutions, and there's many more that I could talk about. But I don't need to rattle off here, but people fear about government overreach and the government has already overreached. We already live in an extremely overreach, and the government. I don't know why nobody says this. The government is extremely conservative already. It's not. There's not a liberal takeover of the government, right? People are conflating this with woke panic, all that stuff, right? All that moral woke panic on the right. The government, because they want to put a book about two men having a baby in public schools, and that's taking over. Like, it's just ridiculous culture war nonsense. Like, the government is extremely right wing. It's in bed with companies already. All of our politicians. It funds wars, unjustified, illegal wars that are literally war crimes, war profiteering, right? And then the government makes it extremely easy for you to own a gun. Like, no, it's taking guns away. It is unbelievably easy to get a gun. The government doesn't care if you have a gun. What the right side is people on the right, what they're worried about is already happened. It's just in bed with the corporatocracy, and it's just been there's this contortionist thinking that they just flip the script on you to make you think that, anyway. It's all just so absurd. They're just distracting us with culture wars. And I used to think culture wars were nonsense and a distraction, but they're not. Culture wars are actually very important because they set the agenda, for the next election cycle. And the culture wars drive the political conversation. Now, do those culture wars actually impact policy? Yeah, I actually think they do. I think they do. I think once someone gets elected because they were a populist in some sort of culture war point, then they drive policy, right? Look what's going on in Florida with Governor DeSantis, right? And it happens on the left too, but not really, right? Not as much, I don't think, from my perspective. Anyway, this has been a nice long rant at you. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been my view of what's going on in the current United States. But it's important not to worry about it too much. Also, like you can't think about these too much. You got to live these things too much. You got to live your life, right? But we got a lot of work to do in this country, and I don't know the way out. And we can't go back. Like there's no going backwards. We got to go forward. Through what's going on. Right now with the Republican political party, right? And I used to vote Republican when I did vote. I actually, a lot of my adult life I haven't voted at all, but I used to, be Republican kind of. But the Republican Party is fundamentally changed, right? It's way more extreme, and with right wing paramilitary groups, there's a lot of concerning things going on the right? It's all looking very fascist, which again I know that's a very loaded word, but it's it's true. It's very true what is going on, and then the rise of Donald Trump and authoritarianism and completely. With a tinge of cult of personality, all that is extremely concerning. It's all very, very, very concerning. And people are like, "Oh, both parties are extreme." Like, yeah, but it's totally asymmetrical. Like, what the extreme things going on the left are like policing people's speech and publicly scolding people and cancel culture, which cancel culture happens on the right as well. So it's not just a unique left wing phenomenon, and limiting freedom of speech and things like that. Those things are happening on the left, right? And then you get these ridiculous rhetoric like defund the police that completely throws it all off the rails, which is such a terrible slogan. And then people conflating Black Lives Matter with destruction of American cities, which is not true. Black Lives Matter was largely 95%, and that's based on hard numbers. Was peaceful. It was a peaceful protest movement, right? So. Yeah, there's extremism on both sides. It's completely asymmetrical. The more extreme political extremism is happening on the right, without a doubt, unequivocally, and it's very concerning. So I don't know where we go from here. But I'm unconvinced. Like a lot of people on the left are completely cynical of the system. Like it can't work. It's over. I'm unconvinced that we cannot repair things within this system. I'm unconvinced of that. I think robust social democratic policy. You institute a bunch of policy. You actually finally get a politician with a political will to do it. That is not tied to a bunch of corporations that are funding their campaign. You get enough people. You get enough politicians in there, in Congress, in the Senate, and the presidency. That institutes robust social democratic policy. It would fundamentally change our society for the better, and it could stabilize our society. I do believe that. I'm unconvinced that we can't do that without fundamentally changing our system or revolution, whatever that means. You I think I'll leave that discussion at that. Kind of went on for a bit. Let me know if you like this, if you want me to do more episodes on like social commentary and things like that. If you want to hear my opinion on things like that more. Anyway, I'll wrap it up. I just wanted to let you know, last week I mentioned I have a new novel coming out, which actually has a lot to do with what's going on right now. So my novel, it's called St. Elsbeth. It comes out in November. It takes place 20 years after post-apocalyptic, and it actually has a lot to do with current situation, like our current political climate influenced my writing of the book. And it takes place. California is the only part of the country that's basically survived nuclear fallout, and there's different people hatched from bunkers, these underground bunkers, and they recolonized San Francisco, Sacramento, San Diego, and Los Angeles, with a different mayor, and they're supposed to work cooperatively by this charter that was created in the bunkers. And now you have a bunch of division, a bunch of strife, and you have a bunch of these little mayors that are trying to be authoritarian, trying to take over the Neo California. So you have actually in my book I have a lot of this politics stuff, kind of, and it's not a political book. The main character is a doctor named Dr. Elspeth. And by the way, aliens came and broke the world. That's how this all happened. They came and humans overacted and they basically destroyed themselves. That's how this happened. This book takes place 20 years later, and Dr. Elsbeth, Dr. Darrow, is running a hospital. She's exhausted. She's tired. She's in her late 50s. She should be looking forward to retirement, but she's not. She kind of hates her life a little bit. She has to go on a salvaging mission to restock her medical supplies, salvaging mission to San Jose. She lives in San Francisco, and she discovers a dead alien body floating in the bay. And she used to be a pathologist, and it's all connected. Why did the aliens come? what's going on with the current political climate, and it's all connected on a cosmic scale. So anyway, and I'm doing this thing. Let's do it in September, the month of September. If you email me, I will send you a free copy of my book, an ebook. You can open up in your Kindle. It's really easy. Email me, and I'll give it to you. I just want people to read my book. I don't care about. I really don't care about making money off of my novels. I love writing novels and having people read them. So email me at icudrecmo@gmail.com. Just email me like, hey, I want the book, and I will just send it to you. That's it, done. And then it'll be an EPUB file. You click on it, you open it up in your Kindle. It opens up in every reader you have, whether you have a Kindle or not, Kindle app, and then just read it. It's about 380 pages. So it's not like super long. I think you'll like it. Let me know. It's yours. Anyway, that'll be it for today. Thanks for enjoying. Thanks for enduring my rant about American politics. Right? I'm sure you get enough of that. But let me know if you liked it. My email address. Follow me on TikTok. ICU Doctor is my handle. I'm on Instagram, ICU Doctor TikTok, and then I started a Threads account also on Mark Zuckerberg's thing, which is fine. Anything to stick it to Elon, right? All right. Thanks. Bye.